And we are live. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Today's episode, I have a repeated guest. Some of you have seen already on my show, my dear friend from Israel, Mr. David Halevi, who is an American, moved with his family all the way to Israel, a Jew. And together we've been talking quite a lot about the concerning rise of anti Semitism and replacement theology and other very concerning theologies that are starting to pop out in the Christian church in America, things that we saw maybe in the past and were glimpses or small kind of fractions of what we call today like global Christianity. Like, I don't even know if we call them Christianity, to be honest.
Yeah.
But they seem to be getting a bigger and bigger voice. Now, David is organizing a conference in the US that I'll be attending as one of the speakers, and we're going to have several other speakers. And we're going to be discussing some of the topics that we're going to be having that conference, because I feel like they're very important for the viewers back home to have an understanding of that picture and that side of the story that is very crucial for the Judeo-Christian alliance that we're seeing. So, David, welcome back to the show.
Man, it's great to be here. Great to see you. I'm so stoked that you're going to be spending some time with us in the States, this fall. And so, as soon as I kind of conceived of the conference, that was right around the time that I had found you, in this crazy thing we call the internet. And I was like, man, Mansur his voice would be so great at this conference, because it's really, there's a lot of conferences out there. There's a lot of Christian conferences. There's Jewish conferences. There's pro-Israel conferences. And it's, I think, something that we're seeing, and kind of, I guess, the topic of conversation today that we're going to get to, is that there's been a massive shift in the United States specifically. I think Europe's kind of been bad for a while, but because of fear, people are shifting towards a nationalization of religion. In other words, Christians, because of fear, are wanting their specific religious points of view to be nationalized. And this is what we would call Christian nationalism. And this is a pattern that we've seen since the beginning of humans. We've seen this pattern, and we'll talk about that. But let me see if I can share if this works here.
Someone is putting a comment, and I think that's a great comment, because it brings directly to what you told me before the show started. Lee G is saying there's no single American church, though, so this is going to be a generalization, I presume. Now, there is, not only at churches, but also movements or organizations that will be interesting to hear. So I want to ask you this, David, and we can jump through that, and then you can show also the screen once you find it. What do you think is the reason that we're seeing a drastic shift in the approach of the church in America towards Israel, towards the Jews, towards the place in the Bible that we see of the Jews? We're not talking right now through the Jewish eyes of the Bible. They have very, solid views of how they are. We're talking about how Christians, mostly in America, are seeing the place of the Jews in their Bible, in their faith. What do you think is leading that change right now? We see the polls are dropping.
Yeah, it's a great question, and I've thought about it a lot over the last 3 years, because obviously we both saw this great shift happen literally like days after October 7th. Already there was a voice within Christian America that was already turning against Israel. Any response, and I knew, I actually told one of the other speakers that's going to be at the conference, his name is Aaron Marshall, one of my best friends, and I told him, because I was with him at the time, he was on October 7th, and I said, within a week, you're going to see voices that are already chastising Israel for any response that we have. And within days, it was already happening. And I'm not talking about within the Islamic community. I'm talking about within Christian circles. And I think that if you look at all of history, no, I say all of history, like all of, let's just say, institutional Christian history, meaning let's just say from the fourth century, when the Roman Empire legalized Christianity, and then it became kind of an institutionally imperial thing, right? It became an institutional nationalized thing. That's kind of like one bracket, right, of history. It begins there, and you had the systematic kind of removal of Jewish influence from the institutional church, okay? And that was the status quo. And anti-Semitism was the norm, unfortunately. And I'm talking about institutional Christianity. I'm not talking about there's always been Christians that love the Jewish people, that weren't anti-Semitic, that didn't believe anti-Semitic theological things, always existed. Okay, but from an institutional standpoint, it is a fact of history that, theologically speaking, within the institution itself was many times anti-Jewish. And we saw this, that it came out in the Crusades, it came out in inquisitions, it came out in various forms during the Reformation and from reformers. My point is that from that point moving forward, the status quo of the world, whether they were Christian or non-Christian, we saw it, of course, from atheistic Soviet Union, etc. The status quo of the world is to be anti-Jewish. That's the status quo, and I think that's a spiritual blindness that the world has because of the enemy, because of the devil, etc. And then the Holocaust happened. Okay, I know this is a lot of yapping, but I have a point here eventually. The Holocaust happens, and obviously half of the Jewish population of the world is murdered. And after that, and we've talked about this before in other episodes together, but before that, there was a very strong nationalist movement within America that was anti-Jewish, that said that the Jews in America, in Hollywood, in political appointments, in the banks, are pushing us towards war with Germany. That was an active message coming from big leaders in the U.S. And that's kind of what we're seeing now too with the whole Iran thing. We've talked about this before. So after the Shoah, after the Holocaust, two things happened. Number one, it's publicly less acceptable to be anti-Semitic because of what everyone just saw. Okay, this awful atrocity had just occurred. Literally millions upon millions of Jews were systematically murdered, tortured, killed, kicked out of their homes, had to flee, etc. And then along with that, in the Western world, specifically in the United States, came the Jesus movement. And the Jesus movement was what I call the one bracket that's now ended at October 7th. And that is this period of time where Christians became obsessed with studying their Bibles for themselves. They were reading the Word of God for themselves. They weren't looking back at past Christian, church fathers or theologians necessarily. I just want to read it for myself, and whatever the text says, that's what I'm going to follow. Well, if you do that, the natural outcome of that pursuit is to see the Jewish people, the Israel that God created way back when through Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, in our natural purposeful setting of, okay, God has a plan for us. He uses the Jewish people. If you're a Christian, he used the Jewish people to bring forth the Messiah and Savior of the world, Moshiach. And that's your perspective. And so, like my parents' generation in America, if you were part of the Jesus movement or whatever, that's where evangelical Christianity came from. And evangelical Christianity, which is a subset of Protestantism, is always been pro-Israel. It's always been pro-Jewish people. It is, like my father is 3 days older than the modern state of Israel, born May 11th, 1948. So this is how I grew up. This is how he grew up, in this kind of environment of Christianity in America is pro-Israel. It is not anti-Semitic. Okay.
I think
just one more quick kind of to bracket that. I think, and then my generation kind of grew up in that, but then as time went on, that has faded away. And the purposeful study of the Bible, just reading it for itself, has now given way to, again, older traditions. And so this bracket now between kind of the Jesus movement and October 7th has encapsulated this period of time. And now we're going back to the status quo. And what's the status quo? The status quo is Jew hatred. The status quo has always been anti-Jewish, anti-Israel sentiment. And at the core of that is there's an identity question within Christianity that has to be wrestled with.
Mm-hmm. I wanna address a few of the comments that were made here, guys. We're not generalizing. We know that there's a lot of Christians in the United States that read the Bible, that go regularly to church, and that have a very clear view of the theology of their faith. And they don't stand against Israel. They don't stand against the Jews. They have, their own way that they see. Maybe there's not eye to eye with many of the Jewish people around the world, but still, it's not Tucker Carlson, not Candace Owens. We know that. But we cannot ignore that there is a rise, a huge rise of anti-Semitism, influence of jihadism and communism that is entering the church right now. And we're seeing a drastic change in the recent polls where it's showing young American Christians are starting to be more favorable towards Palestine, towards communist views, and less favorable towards Israel, towards the Jews, and towards the Judeo-Christian values that seems to have worked hand in hand for a very long time. Now, what you're saying here is making me think about something. For a very long time, since the Roman Catholic Church, like you said, established Christianity as the mainstream, was a very established kind of religion. And we saw there a gigantic spike in anti-Semitism, which is surprising when you think about it, because the Christian faith started as a Jewish faith.
Yeah.
It was, a bunch of Jews that decided that this is my faith, and they were practicing it. And then they opened it to other people around the world that were non-Jews. And then you had Gentiles coming to that faith that were non-Jews, but were giving the status of being part of the church, part of the growing of that faith. That's, was the original identity of Christianity, if you want to look at it that way. But the moment that the church took over, talking the Roman Catholic Church took over, we saw all of a sudden something very unique. People were discouraged from reading the Bible by themselves and understanding it by themselves, and Christianity becoming a personal belief. And people were being told that they should follow the teaching of the teachers, of the priests, of priesthood, and etc. And there were at times also in the Roman Catholic Church that people were even not allowed to read the Bible. It was written, and they used to read it in a language that most people couldn't even understand. It was only the priests who will come and translate. And then you start seeing bizarre things like flocking themselves, like earthly, deedly atonement of the sins, and etc. It was not about that connection that was preached by Jesus and by his disciples. One of the very unique things that I've noticed when America was established as a country, the people who moved to America moved mostly from Christian countries. And that's why the identity of America in the beginning was a very Christian nation. But that was the first time in a very long time in history where people were told we're not part of the church anymore. They're not telling us what to do. We're not part of England. We're not part of the Catholic Church. We are independent Christians, people who believe in the word, and we're going to study it by themselves. And when people started studying the Bible by themselves, then you saw a big rise of support toward the Jewish people. We're not hating them. We're not persecuting them. That is wrong. We saw what happened when you allow that to happen. Nazi Germany, through the eyes of many Jews and also through the eyes of many Germans, was a Christian nation that decided to kick the Jews out of basically Christianity. And now we're seeing the same thing happening. We're seeing people who are following their faith through Christianity, not by what the church tells them, but by what podcasters and influencers around the world and media figures are coming and telling them. So when I talk in Umingle and I talk to Christians, young Christians, they always like, Christ is king, I'm a Christian, Christ is king, and this. And then I ask them questions about the Bible and they have no idea.
Yeah.
And I genuinely think that they did not read the Bible. They actually never probably read the Bible by themselves. They might have read here a verse, here's there, that was a post kind of on TikTok, but they never read it themselves. And when you have people coming away from that word, coming away from the theology itself, that's when you start seeing these things again, that the Jews don't belong here. They're not part of the kingdom. God left them alone. They crucified Jesus. They're the bad guys. They forget even that Jesus was a Jew himself. Yeah. Many times I ask these guys, they tell me, oh, the Jews are evil. I said, you know that Jesus is a Jew, right? Yeah. And then they skip and they kind of pass over. So I feel like this thing of getting away from the word might be one of the main factors that we're seeing here, hate towards Israel and the support of people that are clearly enemies of Christianity. Islam is not a friend of Christianity. Islam came to replace Christianity. People don't know, but in Al-Aqsa in Jerusalem, one of the main things that are written on the wall there, La ilaha illallah wa Muhammad Rasulullah, is there's no God other by God, which drove directly in opposing Jesus, in opposing the Trinity, in opposing Christianity, and coming and saying that's a false idol-worshipping religion. We are the true religion. So Christians today that are supporting that are Christians that just don't know what is under it. And I think big part of that is just because they just don't read the Bible themselves.
Yeah, it's such a good point. Going back to, once the Latin Vulgate became the primary text of the Roman Catholic Church, is translated by Jerome in the 4th century. When you look at that whole group of guys, whether it was Jerome or specifically Augustine now has affected more Christian theology than any other figure in history. But as soon as you can control people's access to the Word of God, now you become the authority. And we both know that the authority lies in God and the text itself and the Bible itself. So if you can take that out of the hands of the reader, then now they have to rely on you, right? Now you have the authority. I recently did a video on the language of Jesus and what language did he actually speak. And all the evidence points to that he spoke Mishnaic Hebrew. He spoke Hebrew of the day. He taught in Hebrew. He lived life in Hebrew. All of the Jews in Judea at the time did the same. And so what happened? Like, how did we get this idea that Jesus lived life and spoke in Aramaic? Not that he didn't maybe know Aramaic, he probably did. But this all came out of the 1500s when the Eastern Church put out the Bible in Syriac, which is a late form of Aramaic. And they did it in order to usurp the authority of the Word of God, because all of their services and all of their teaching were in Syriac, and they wanted to be able to say that the words coming out of their priest's mouth, their bishop's mouth, were the very words of Jesus, which just simply wasn't true. So now people can, you can disagree with me all you want on that, and that's fine. Just go do the research. And I think you spend 15 minutes on this subject and you realize there's just simply no credence or evidence to the idea that Jesus lived, taught, and spoke in Aramaic. Now, what's the point? Well, the point is that there's always been an attack on the authority of the Word of God, on the actual words that come out of the Bible, whether you're a Hebrew Bible adherence person or whether you adhere to both the Hebrew Bible and the New Testament. There's always been attack on the authority. It's all about authority, and people want to control other people. If you're an authority, you want to control those who you have authority over. And so it's just the natural inclination of man, which is specifically against what God would have us do and how he would have us treat each other.
Yeah. I feel like in the church today in America, there is some kind of a hesitance from prominent voices from the church to stand up against that. Mm-hmm. And it's because the enemies are diverting it into, it's not anti-Jewish, it's anti-Zionism. It's not anti-Israel, it's anti-Israel's controlling America, which are all lies. Israel is not controlling America. Yeah. Israel is just one other country, like many other countries that have interest in American politics and policies. That's obvious. And America opened that up. America opened themselves up to have the lobbying system, and people can lobby. And of course, then you're going to have a lot of money, and Qatar is trying to influence, Turkey is trying to influence, Brazil is trying to influence, Portugal, Israel, everybody's trying to influence in some ways, because America is a superpower that as it should. Yeah. We're not living in isolation as kind of America, and people are afraid to stand up against these rise of anti-Semitism. But I think this is a real danger for the church itself, not only for Israel losing their Christian allies. It's a danger for the church itself, because once your church is not rooted in the Bible, once your church become a religious thing, a religious political movement, and not a matter of faith, then that's it. That's it. Game over. I was reading the other day a story about a very brave priest that lived in Nazi Germany, who got hanged and executed by the Nazi, regime. And it was because he stood up against Nazi Germany. And there were a lot of priests then that aligned themselves with Nazi Germany, which is crazy when you think about it. Like you say, you'd expect the Christians to be the first one to stand against what Nazi Germany represented, which was complete pure evil, the reincarnation of demons and the devil on earth. But there were a lot of Christians, a lot of priests that stood with them because it became a political movement, because it became a mainstream movement. And the question you ask yourself, how many brave pastors do we still have in America that are willing to stand up, even if they will pay a personal price, stand up against that, stand up and says, guys, this is anti-Semitism, this is hatred, this is non-biblical. America is America, of course. Israel is Israel. Different countries, sometimes they have aligned interests, sometimes they don't. But to cater to that Jew-hating, Israel-hating is very, very dangerous, not only for Israel, but also for the church, because it's interesting how it goes. It's not only about the Nazis or about the Muslims. First they came for the Shabbat people, then they came for the Sunday people. The people who want to see Israel destroyed are the same people that want to see America destroyed, are the same people that want to see the church in America being destroyed. And that's because they know that one of the main things that is holding America as it is today, it's its Christian identity. America is not Europe. America, the average American is not the average European. In America, still, there's a lot of place there for Christianity. There's still very amazing Christians that are high up-ranking generals in the army, in the special forces, in the Delta forces, and other units that are very much Christian, but also very much into the world, I would say. They're involved in politics, they're involved in the job, and etc. It's not like a religious kind of, they're just hamina, hey, going to the church. They're very much. And I'm just kind of wondering, I know there is very proud and loud voices among Christian pastors that are speaking, but I'm not seeing it enough. Because you see, the voices that we're hearing from Tucker, from Candace, from Nick Fontizzi and others who are pretending to be Christians is enormous. Yeah. And you're barely hearing voices from Christians. And I know that the church in America is a strong church. I mean, there is mega churches there. There is very big churches there that have a lot of political influence, a lot of influence on the education system, but we're not seeing them pushing that much, or at least I'm not hearing it. Maybe they're doing it, but we're just not seeing it in social media.
No, I think you're exactly right. Well, I don't know if it's a chicken and egg thing, because on one hand, I do think it's probably close to impossible to build a very large platform right now if you are pro-Israel or pro-Jewish or whatever, however you want to phrase that, right? If you're just not anti-Semitic, right? Like, how do you build a platform? You can do it if you never say anything about it, right? Now, there are some exceptions to that. I recently did a video critiquing, and I don't really do hardly any videos critiquing other people. I just try to do like evergreen, this is what I think is true, and you guys can run with it if you think it's worthy, But I was extremely disappointed because there was a megachurch pastor that went on Sean Ryan's program, when we all know the history of Sean Ryan's platforming of anti-Semites and other stuff going on there, right? Anti-Israel is definitely a big part of that platform now in his podcast. So there was a Christian pastor that went on there, Josh Howerton, I think his name was, and I've seen him. I don't follow his stuff, but I have seen clips of him being very pro-Israel. Okay,
he's probably one of the biggest voices out there.
Yeah. So I was like, man, this will be great. Like, he's going to go on and he's going to confront Sean. And there's 3 hours at time. I'm sure something's going to come up. Well, Sean did bring something up about Israel and how he disagrees with one of his friends and blah, 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 blah. I'm like, okay, here's the opportunity. Like, here's the open door. Like, you believe this stuff. Let's see if you say anything. He said nothing.
Really?
He didn't bring it up, didn't say anything, didn't push back, didn't say, hey, man, hey, Sean, I love you. I think you do a lot of great stuff here, but you're wrong on these issues. But here's the deal. It's one thing to have an opinion that's correct. It's another thing to have opinions and it's correct and say nothing about it when it really matters. Because Howerton's viewers, or our viewers for that matter, know what we think. They're followers because they agree with us and they enjoy having some camaraderie here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where truth really, really, really matters is when we have that opportunity to affect the greater world with that truth. And I agree with 100%. Like, I am not either seeing, pastors or leaders, for that matter, of influence do anything on this subject. Like, I'm a big fan of Mike Winger. I think he does a lot of great stuff. He's done a really good job in exposing kind of the new age influence in the charismatic movement, and the whole kind of prophecy side of kind of the craziness that goes on in Christianity sometimes. He's done a really good job with that, exposing it. And a lot of these guys are frauds, and he's calling them out by name. He has not done a single show or segment since October 7th about Israel. Not one. And so these are the leading voices within, kind of the online world that have a really big audience. And if you're going to be silent on this, I really do think that there's some, look, we bear a responsibility for what we do with what God has given us. And I'm not going to pass judgment, but at the same time, I do make judgments, like I do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not passing judgment. But we are called to make judgments for our own, internal edification, I guess you could say. And we have to do better as a community to speak up for these things, because the reality is that to know the right thing and not to do it is sin to the person.
Silence is action. Complacency is
exactly
louder than words sometimes. And I think there's a lot of young Christians that are bombarded every day with messages about, Israel, hate Israel. So they're not Christians, we're going, they hate us, and etc. And then when you get all of a sudden the chance for big Christian pastors, very known figures, to stand up there, and they're not challenging that, but rather diverting and talking about other stuff, it gives these kids a message. All right, maybe there is something there. And one of the things that I really liked when I was in the officer academy in the IDF, when they were talking to us about infantry warfare and what happened if you are attacked, if you find yourself in an ambush. You're walking through a valley, and all of a sudden machine guns and artillery, and they start shooting at you. And one of the main teachings from there was you must take an action immediately. Even if it's a wrong action at that moment, you have to make an action against the fire that is being shot at you. So staying in one place is the worst thing ever. Hunkering down is the worst thing ever. The IDF teach that when you are shot at, you come and you shout, we've been attacked from the right flank, stand up and charge. And you charge at the fire. You give pushback. Immediately, the idea was when there's bad energy coming at you, you immediately push it back with your energy. You have to. Because if you stop, you're going to die. If you stay silent, you're actually taking an action here. You're letting the other side dictate how things are going. And I feel like right now there is an attack on the church. There is an attack on the core values and sets of faith that made the American church different than the European church. Again, it's a generalization, but we know what we're talking about. You can see very clearly. American church was, in general, there's a funny statistics, like all the humanitarian work that is happening in the world and all the financial support that is going is mostly going from the American church. There's almost nothing that is coming from European church. So American Christians have built a church system that is very much focused on the individual as a personal faith. And people there came and said, I am going to support this. I'm going to do this because I believe, not because I'm told. And that made the people active. They're active Christians compared to just, Sunday goers. And now you're having a very, very drastic attack on these values. And instead of taking an action, they're just kind of, waiting it off. And we're seeing where that is going. They're losing the young ones. It's a battle not only losing for the hate of Israel, they're also losing for the lack of knowledge. Like, I always like to, when I'm talking to these young ones, I always like to show them the book themselves. And I say, guys, read it. If your Bible doesn't have like fingerprint stains on it and like pages and iron marks, then you're not really reading your Bible. You're not really taking notes. You need to have the hard copy next to you. One time I was challenged in a nice way by a very dear German Christian friend of mine. And he asked me, why do you take this big, thick Bible with you to the army? It's like big. Why can't you take like one of the small ones? And I said, yeah, you're right. That's probably way, way easier to have it. And I used to have this Bible with me, the Jewish Bible and the Christian Bible and the Druze faith book. Well, it's kind of a secret, but they have like guidance. I used to take it with me wherever I go. And I answered him, I says, I don't want it to be comfortable. Because when it's comfortable, you forget about it. When it's something that is always in your way, it makes you always reevaluate. Why am I doing this? Is it important for me? So even though it will be an extra weight on my vest, even though it will be my backpack when I'm going through the bus, or when I'm driving in a tank or in a Jeep, I always had the big one with me. Just kind of as a reminder, I'm doing this as a decision, even though it's not comfortable. And I think a lot of time Christianity, and in any religion actually, when you're called to walk your faith, there's going to be challenges along the way. And I feel like today they made it very comfortable. They made it very convenient. You sit, you do whatever you want. Once in a while, you go in, you read a post, you see a picture, you see someone going out and just spitting lies, and you have no way to challenge it because you're not actually living it. You're not boots on the ground. You're not, hands-on with that. And that is something that I'm not seeing America really doing anything to change that. And that is very concerning, if you ask me.
Yeah, man, it's such a good analogy. And it's something that, for any American that moves to Israel, we immigrated 4 years ago. And something that you immediately understand is that America has perfected convenience. America has perfected an easy way of life. And I think it might have frozen. I don't know if, oh yeah, okay.
No.
So, and that is in every facet of American society, whether it's religious American society, cultural Christianity, or the atheist, doesn't matter. America is a convenient place, and no matter what kind of life you want to craft there, it is convenient and easy, and as least abrasive as possible. And that's also true for the American church, and that's a very dangerous place to be. It's a very dangerous place to be when you are not challenged, or you can live life without ever being challenged. When you can fall into this category of, well, that's not really affecting me now, so I don't have to deal with it, And we don't have to do, the Rooted Kingdom conference. People can go to therootedkingdom.com to see all the speakers and all the scheduled sessions and the topics and everything like that. But the Rooted Kingdom conference is, we don't have to do this, right? And I in no way, shape, or form think that Israel is out of the hand of God for one single second, nor do we need the Christian American church's support to survive. We have always survived. We will always survive because God sustains us as a nation, as a people. But my perspective on this is that, look, I want to help you out, American church, that I grew up around in some respects, because I'm concerned for the actions that you are either not taking or are taking, right? I'm concerned that the position of the American church is turning against Israel and the Jewish people to an extent that it will be judged in a bad way. Okay? Now, not to get too theological or anything like that, but the point is that God specifically says that if you are blessing Israel, and we can argue about what that means, that you will be blessed. And if you are holding her lightly, meaning, in a way, if you don't treat Israel the way that God wants her to be treated, you will be judged. You will be cursed, the text specifically says. And so I don't want people to be in that position when they don't have to be. I want them to live in truth and light. And I think that the American church is a place where that conversation should happen, needs to happen. And I think we can win people over to the truth, because for the most part, the American church is desiring to follow what is true.
No, the American church is, in my eyes, one of the most beautiful churches out there. Now, here's my question. As someone like you who is an American, is an Israeli, understand the American mentality, understand the Israel mentality, what do you think that Israel needs to do in order to bring itself closer or back, or bring the Christians in America closer back to Israel and to the Judeo-Christian values, because we're seeing them drifting away. Do you think Israel can do anything different, or should focus on something, or it's out of their hands?
Well, I think this all comes down to what we actually think is the problem. Like what is the actual problem? What is driving people intellectually, theologically to go against Israel? And obviously a lot of it is the online war and the propaganda, right?
Mhm.
Obviously. That's a big part of it. And so I think Israel, we've done a bad job at confronting that on a level that we should be confronting it, right? We are really bad at speaking up for ourselves. I don't know why that is, but I mean, I've watched in horror the last almost 4 years now, of kind of yes, we respond. Occasionally you'll see somebody from the government say this stuff is lies that they say about us, but there isn't the type of online response that's being attacked. As you're like the example you just said, you're in Lebanon, you're fighting Hezbollah or something, and you get attacked. There wasn't an immediate and appropriate response to the online war, and there still isn't, right? There isn't that major pushback. That's number one. It has to happen immediately from just a purely secular kind of point of view, informational war kind of thing. And I don't know that this will ever happen, but I really believe that until Israelis understand that you can basically point to one theological point of view of the Christian world that turns people against Israel, and that is the belief that they themselves are the true Jews, that they themselves are true Israel. And that theological belief system, no matter what you want to call it, replacement theology, supersessionism, fulfillment theology, whatever you want to call it, that always, 100% of the time, when you follow it to its natural conclusion, displaces the Jews from their right place under God and places themselves in their seat. That's why it's called supersessionism. They supersede the nation of Israel in their theological belief.
Yeah.
And it always leads to anti-Semitism.
Something came to my popcorn kind of mind where there's thoughts coming up. There used to be a time where Christians and Jews had this NATO alliance, meaning that attack on one is attack on all. Mostly the American Christians. They realized that in the scripture, God never abandoned the Jews. We joined that tree of the faith that was brought by the Jews, and now we're part of that big congregation. The word church was not really used in the Bible. It was congregation, kehillah. And then even though we're walking different paths or seeing things differently, we're still on the same group. That's where we use the terminology Judeo-Christian values. We're standing on it. So attack on one was an attack on all. But now what they're trying to do is to get the Jews out of the Bible, to get the Jews out of the definition of Jews. Oh, they're not Jews. These guys are Ashkenazis, etc. They're not Jews. Yeah. They're not the original. We are the Jews. And I was like, you guys are also Ashkenazi, man. What are you talking about? So, yeah. But bottom line is that I think was one of the key factors here, where helped create a separation. Now, I have an idea. There's a program called Taglit.
Yeah.
And Taglit is a program that birthright that allows every Jew, mostly in America, that have this movement, can get the chance, I think from the age of 16 to 27, I'm not sure about the ages, he can get a free trip to Israel where it's all sponsored, and he goes and they put them, in a group, and they go with a bus all around the land of Israel, and they get to visit the kibbutzim, they get to visit religious places, secular places, Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, Sea of Galilee. And it was literally an order. I had to send once a month one of my soldiers to go and join these buses, and my soldiers loved it. Because, let's be honest. What's better, to be right now behind enemy line or serving somewhere in Gaza or in Ramallah, or to go in a bus full of American teenagers and young people? So once a month, I had to send one of my soldiers to go and join them. And then they had their, an IDF soldier will be with them, a Hebrew professor will be with them, a tour guide will be with them, people from different sectors in Israel, and they will get to know Israel very well. So then that young Jewish American, when he goes back to America, he feels a little bit more connected to Israel. And he also understands that Israel is not that different than America in many aspects. It's a democracy. It's a country that appreciates freedom. It's a country that gives freedom to all the people that are living in it, regardless of the color of your skin, regardless of your religion. Like Israel is the only country in the Middle East that you can actually have freedom anchored by law and equality. If you're a Muslim, if you're Christian, if you're a Jew, if you're atheist, it doesn't matter what. And that's very similar to America in some ways. If you're an American, you're an American. Doesn't matter if you're Christian,
Right.
if you're agnostic, if you're
Right.
any other religion, if you're Jewish, if you're Muslim, if you're born in America, you're an American. If you're a citizen there. I feel like the church need to maybe adapt that idea. Start creating, and they have a lot of money. They can do that. They have a lot of power to do that. Starts creating these birthright biblical trips, cultural trips, where they send young Americans to come to Israel and they can meet with Israeli Christians and Israeli Jews and any other religion as well, and can go and have a travel, because that way, that young American, who's probably most of them, probably never been outside of America. Now here you have a trip that is free, that is sponsored, that is very focus oriented, like I have an agenda, I have a program. You go, you land here, you go and you see Jerusalem, you go and see Tel Aviv, you go to this university, you get this lecture from this guy, you go, you learn about an Israeli startup and high-tech mentality. It's not only religious, you get to like the whole shebang, the whole thing. Then he goes back to America, and that young Christian man or woman will know to stand his ground much better whenever he sees anti-Semitism coming, because he have built friendships with people from another country that is a democracy and that is a very strong ally of the United States. He have built friendships. So when someone is going to come and start telling him, oh, the Jews are bad, the Jews control the media, he's like, what are you talking about? I've been to Israel. Most of them have no idea and don't even care about American politics. Most Israelis just want to finish the day when they're working, go to the beach, have a beer with their friends, and eat falafel. They don't really care. Right. They don't even know who's Epstein. They never heard of Epstein. Like now we're hearing about it, but like the average Israeli like have no idea what you're talking about. Like why are you saying that Epstein is Israel? Why are you saying that these Zionist evil movements is Israel? What are you talking about?
Travel is the greatest cure for bigotry or something like that. I'm not sure if that's attributed to him, but yeah, you're exactly right. And it's really interesting. I had a guy, I was giving a talk last year. Yeah, it is a great idea, and I'm totally behind it. We'll lead it together, Mansur. We'll take people around.
Let's do it, man. Let's do it. We know Israel very well. We know the American. Let's start bringing young Americans.
We just need some rich people to pay for it.
Yes. Anyone rich here want to help us sponsor the first trip of young Americans to bring them to Israel?
Yeah, exactly.
So they can learn about Israel.
But the beautiful thing about that is that look, every time I talk to someone who is either uncertain on who to believe about Israel, meaning they don't know if Tucker's right and Candace is right, or if we're right. Okay, I don't know who to believe. Right. Well, come to Israel and find out for yourself if you really, want to know. I had a guy that I was giving a talk on Zionism last fall in the U.S. And well-meaning guy, a patriot of the United States, lost his leg in Iraq fighting for the United States, and was just sick of war, as you and I are both sick of war, right? We know what it is, and we're just so sick of it. And I was like, look, man, I'm sick of it too. So then he brings up this quote from the Talmud, which is often used by the Tucker Carlsons of the world, trying to paint the Jews as being these evil people who, in their Talmud, believe that Jesus is burning in excrement for all eternity.
And that modern day Jews in Israel spit on Christians when they walk on the street,
stuff, right? And I said, okay, first of all, that quote from the Talmud isn't talking about Jesus of Nazareth. It was written at least 100 years before he lived. And second of all, look, you know how many sects of Jews that we have? Most Jews on this planet have never read the Talmud, don't study the Talmud. The Reformed Jewish, sect doesn't believe that it has authority. The Karaite Jewish sect doesn't believe that it has authority. Yes, there are large sections of Orthodoxy that do believe it has authority, whatever. But the point is, you come to Israel and you're going to figure out all of a sudden, okay, wait, 73% of the population isn't even religious. So you're trying to paint this broad brush that all Jews believe this specific passage in the Talmud, which has already been misrepresented. But, one day in this country relieves you of that lie. Because you instantly, you're in Tel Aviv and you're like, are these people Jewish or what? I don't even see anybody with the black hat and the curlies,
Yeah, I saw a video yesterday of an influencer, quite a famous one, I forgot the name, walking in Jerusalem. And he says, I'm a Christian. I'm going to walk in Jerusalem with like a big cross on his chest.
Uh-huh.
And I'm going to see if they're going to spit on me. And then like after the whole day, it's like, nobody spit on me. This was a waste of my day. And I said, like, yes, sometimes you'll have some idiot in Israel who will spit on someone because he's a Christian or because he's a Muslim or because he's a Jew or because he's, but you have that also in America.
Mhm.
Actually, you have a higher chance of getting someone spitting on you or attacking you in America if you walk as a Christian in some very liberal areas. Does that mean that all Americans hate Christian? No. Does that mean that there is people in America that do that? Yes. Same in Israel, guys.
Yeah.
This lie that they hate Christians, that they want to spit on Christians, and I don't know what, that is not true. The average Israeli by far couldn't care about your religion. If you walk in Israel, he will not care. If even if Muslim, Druze, Christian, he would not care. I tell you what, if you will go as a Christian with a cross in Israel, nobody's going to care. 99% of the people will just not care. If you go as a Christian with a cross in Palestine or in Syria or even in Lebanon in some Christian majority kind of areas, Muslim majority areas, or in Jordan, you will be spit on. You will probably be lynched. And that is, I think, the dissonance, the lack of kind of connection from reality. You have the reality here where Israel is a great ally of America. They're great friends. They love one another. In general, great ally of the West. I tell you even a crazier example. That's how much Israel is a country of love and compassion compared to other countries of hate and death. If you go to Israel as a German and you walk in the streets as a German in Tel Aviv, in Jerusalem, most likely people will be interested to hear what do you think about the local beer that they just started brewing, because they see you as an authority for beer.
Yeah.
Or will tell you that they will not even say, oh, you're Nazi because you're German. And we all know what Germany did to Israel. So you have a country that tried to erase the Jews, completely erase them. And then you have the Jews in Israel just not hating them.
Yeah.
Actually, they're great friends. That is Israel, guys. Israel is not a country that you can come and generalize. Now you say, yeah, you might find a certain Jew here and there that still kind of have grudge against the German. But even then, he's probably not going to go and blow up a bus in Germany or, start shooting in a train. But you cannot come and say that this represents all of Israelis. And that's where I feel like people like Sean Ryan, people like Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, they're waiting all day to find one story that they can come and use it and come and say all Jews in Israel hate Americans. All Jews hate Israel. They're laughing at us. They hate us. They're using our money. And that is what I feel. That's why I think this whole taglit, this whole birthright, could be a brilliant idea, man. Start bringing young Christians into Israel. There's a lot of churches in Israel that would love to host them. I tell you a story. Like one time when I was traveling in Africa, and there was this tribe that found me in the jungle. They thought I was lost. I don't think I was lost, but they say I was lost. And they welcomed me. They welcomed me in the tribe, really high in the mountains, like no electricity, no crazy, very, very kind of old place. And they took care of me. They gave me food. They even, fixed my clothes. I had like torn jeans and it was fashion, but they took it when they do laundry and they fixed it. And I was like, nah, this is fashion.
Wait, I missed, you're in South America or Africa? I didn't catch it.
Africa, in Uganda.
Africa. Yeah.
So high up in the mountains, in the jungle of Uganda, I'm sitting there after a big hike with this like 3-4 elder Christian tribe leaders. And one of them comes and tells me, my life dream before the Lord take me is to come and see the land of Jesus. And I look at him and I says, come. And he's like, I said, listen, man, I'm not rich. I paid for the flight ticket. I came here and you guys took care of me. You showed me everything. You welcomed me to your homes. You gave me food, shelter, dressed me. Come to Israel, we'll take care of you. I didn't think they're ever going to come to Israel. Yeah, these guys don't have even a concept of money. Right. All of a sudden, a month and a half later, I get an email. One of them had an email. And he told me, Mr. Mansur, the Lord have answered my prayer. Someone high up in the government heard about your adventure walking in our mountain, that the men from Israel walked here. And he decided, he works in the religion kind of ministry. And he said, we send Muslims to Mecca and we send Catholics to Rome every year. We're going to send these Christians to go in Israel. We're going to cover their trip.
Wow.
So now I'm coming to Yochanan, Ian, my friend, and I'm telling you, listen, man, I kind of forgot to say something. When I was in Africa, I promised these guys that if they come to Israel, I'm going to take care of them. And he said, okay, you didn't tell me. I said, yeah, I said a lot of things that I didn't tell you. That was one of them.
Yeah.
And anyway, they're coming, 12 of them next month. He's like, what? So with a few phone calls, I've got churches, synagogues, universities in Israel, secular organizations of tourism, hotels, and this all pitch in, says, we love that idea. Let us sponsor it for you. I got a bus. I got hotels in Jerusalem, in the Sea of Galilee, in Eilat, in the north, and everything was covered. And he said, just take these older Christian men and have them walk through the land of Israel and teach. And we went all around Israel. It was a beautiful trip. I mean, these people have never seen. One of the first questions they asked me when they got to Jerusalem, I took them, like, someone gave us his house in Jerusalem. And we were staying there, and they come and tell me, like, you have hot water and cold water coming from the same hole in the wall. And I says, yeah, they're talking about the sink. And they said, like, but I see no river outside. And I'm like, yeah, let me explain about the irrigation and water system. Let's go back. Anyway, my point is, that was such a blessed trip, and these people were so blessed by it that up until today, you know, back in Africa where they live, they keep sharing the stories of how they witnessed firsthand Israel. And also they witnessed a secular Israel. That's, you know, something very interesting. People think it's extreme religious. No, guys, it's very secular. So they came and they witnessed Israel, the secular democracy, the freedom kind of beacon in the Middle East. And I think that this probably something that needs to be done. That's why I'm saying it again. I think we're onto something. We need to start doing that, me and you, man.
Yeah,
I'm so busy, man. I don't know if I can have time for this. We need to find a way. Maybe someone else want to do it. We'll help you.
No. You carve out some time. And you know what? The other thing I think it needs to happen is we need people that are online that have their own shows coming here too. We need people that would love to be better informed. Maybe they're not, you know, maybe they're on the fence. They don't know who to believe. They don't know what to think. Well, then, hey, come here, right? And I don't know if anybody's going to sponsor you to do that, but we'll sponsor the kids.
No,
and
I think we'll do a much better job than the government, because the government of Israel have tried to do that a few times, but it was a catastrophe.
Yeah.
They brought some really weird, cringy influencers, like perverts and anti-Semites. And also when they bring them, they go and tell them a briefing and all. Like, guys, stop with this nonsense. Yeah. Really.
And we
let
don't
me
need
pick. I'll pick right now.
For itself.
Yeah. Give me the budget. I'll go and I'll pick 30 people. Easy. Influencers and just students and I don't know what. I'll bring them. I have my friends.
Yeah. Exactly.
I have my relatives. I have my friends in the Druze village and in the Jewish cities and the Christian areas. We'll just bring them. Trust me. We'll take care of that. It's going to probably be way better than what the government is trying to do.
Anything that the public does is always way better than the government's trying to do.
Yeah.
As Ronald Reagan says, the worst thing you can hear is, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
No, that's true. I want to go back again to this conference that you're organizing in the US.
Yeah.
It's going to be addressing to the church, right? You're going to be talking there with like people from the church.
Let's see here. Oh, my screen share is not working. Doesn't matter. Just go to therootedkingdom.com. Sorry, what's the question?
So it's going to be addressing the church, right?
Yeah, for sure.
A particular church, like a few churches or something like that.
Yeah. So one's a pretty large church in Lubbock, Texas. It's West Texas, and the other one is in Atlanta, Georgia. So two large. They're evangelical, non-denominational churches that I have some relationship with, and they both recognize that even within their own ranks that the rise of Christian nationalism and anti-Semitism is a problem. And so they also want to address it. So they've seen the need. They've stepped up and said, no, we want to do something about it too. And So we'd be happy to have you, come here. So yeah, the first half of the just therootedkingdom.com for people that want to go and check it out. But so Mansur is going to be speaking, and we were talking about it yesterday. Mansur is going to be talking
about. Send it to my
WhatsApp.
I can share it probably here.
Yeah, let me send it to you.
The link.
Look here.
If you could think of like a message that you would want to carry with you to this church, a stark warning or encouragement, what would that message be? Like, what would you want the church in America to focus on?
Well, I think it's kind of summed up in the first session of the day, which is we titled Truth versus Tradition.
Mm-hmm.
And listen, you can never go wrong adhering to what's true. And what is true? Truth is that which corresponds to reality. All right. Now, we're going to make arguments for what we believe to be reality, right? The reality is that modern Israel is biblical Israel. The reality is that biblical Zionism is the entire framework of all of Scripture. It's all leading one place. And that one place is Zechariah 14, which is where the God of all creation is ruling and reigning from Jerusalem. And what's really interesting in that passage, which is what we call the Messianic kingdom or the Messianic age, in Zechariah 14, there's this little message to the land of Egypt that says, if you do not come up and share in Sukkoth, or the Feast of Booths, with Israel, then God will cause no rain to fall on your land, and the plagues of which he has placed upon the entire world will be placed upon you. So even in the Messianic age, where God is ruling and reigning from Jerusalem, you still have people rebelling against him and their unwillingness to even set foot in the land of Israel. I just find that really interesting. So the point is that humanity never changes, right? But that's my main message with all of this, because look, we can, and there, the message you're going to give on Islam and the dangers of Islam and kind of your perspective of really having that very unique behind the enemy lines, better than anybody the consequences for not taking Islam seriously, right? But behind all of that is going back to kind of how our discussion began, which was that if people are following what's true, if you are studying your Bibles to gain what's true, not because tradition tells you to read it a specific way, you're going to come away with that with a true representation of what the world is and what God is doing. And that's really the main focus of the conference, is getting people to get back to basic understanding of how to study the Bible, how to think about truth versus tradition. Do I believe things because they're true, or do I believe things because a church father told me, or my rabbi told me, or tradition has told me, right? And once you some big themes of the conference are, what is the true definition of Israel in the Bible? What is the kingdom of God? Is it something that is yet to come, or something we're already living in? What about the nation? Something that is never taught in church is the story of the nations in the Bible. And this is huge, because I think my opinion is one of the reasons why people are always trying to steal the identity of Israel, besides the authority factor, is because they've never been told their own story. People are never, there's lots of stories of nations in the Bible, and also about nations in the world to come, and nobody ever talks about that. So if you're looking for an identity and you're unaware that you have an identity outside of Israel that's holy and just and purposeful, then you're going to try to usurp the identity of Israel, because that's the main storyline in the Bible. So it's things like that we really drill down on the basics of what the Bible says about very basic things. And it may seem, well, what's the point in that if it's so basic? Well, I'm beyond all that. But the reality is most people miss this stuff. And because of that, that's how we get ourselves in this situation we're in, where people are literally spewing hate against the very nation that God has created to bring them light, right?
Yeah. No, I'm seeing the website here. I've first time that I see it. Here's my picture. Woohoo!
There you are.
Interesting group of
And also
speakers
just
here.
seeing people like people, I guarantee people in America are unaware of what a Druze person is, right? People
Yeah.
like they look at Zechariah Arni and they're like, wait, that guy's Jewish? I'm like, yeah, I mean, Jews came, the tribe of Dan, there's a couple different pathways here, right? But most likely the tribe of Dan fled from the first exile into Africa, into what's now modern Ethiopia, and Jews have been there for thousands of years, you know? And it's like, we're white, brown, black. We all make up the nation of Israel, the Jewish people. And that's another thing people are just confronted with, because it's not just the fake Khazar kingdom, it's
Yeah.
no, we're all kinds of different people. Olivier Melnick, really fascinating story with him. Both of his parents were Holocaust survivors. And he just has, he's probably, I think, the foremost authority on the Holocaust today and anti-Semitism. He's written a ton of books on it. If you're unfamiliar with his work, Olivier Melnick, check him out. He's a French Jewish man who immigrated to the U.S., but again, both his parents were Holocaust survivors. Just has amazing insight on what's going on today, because he's chronicled the rise of the Third Reich for so long, and all of the political turmoil and avenues that the Third Reich used to get into power. And the language of the day of the 1930s is so reminiscent of what we're seeing going on today. It's really uncanny. So, yeah, it's and then Colm Morganti is a co-author of mine on the Rooted Kingdom book. So I'm really excited about the whole day. Is really planned as, like I was telling Mansur the other day, it's really a plan from end to end to link everybody together. We have multiple speakers in every session, so it's not boring. You're not just listening to one guy yap for 50 minutes.
Well, I'm excited, man. I've read the curriculum. It looks really good. I'm a bit shocked from a comment that I saw here from UV. Christians, Muslims, who care? You are non-Jews and dead to me. Do not come close. Is that a joke, or do you mean that, man? I never thought that you hold these kind of views, man. UV is a guy that has been constantly active in my chats. That's why I'm wondering, maybe I missed something here. But if you ask me, guys, that is a big problem. When you have people in Israel that don't understand the importance of having friends around the world. We are hated all around the world without any reason, honestly. There is cultures that should be hated. I'm going to say it that way. Not individual the person, but the way that they act. There is cultures that are doing horrendous crimes against other religions, against women, against children, against minorities. Israel is not one of them. Yet Israel is getting all the heat. So to come and think that we don't need the world, it's like Americans having an isolationist kind of mentality, only America is gigantic. It's very strong and it's surrounded by oceans. So by the time the problems get to America, it's already devoured the planet. That's what happened in Nazi Germany. They thought like we don't need to be involved. And then boom, all of a sudden Pearl Harbor and Nazi Germany is like, oh my God, this is going to reach us. Same thing with Iran right now. Nuclear weapon, you think it's going to stop with the Middle East? No, it's going to get to you guys. Israel, there is people in Israel that have the same mentality of isolationist kind of, and I think that is so dangerous and so unnecessary, and that's why I'm just a bit surprised here. Okay, I'm very disappointed, Yuvi. If that's how you think, that's very surprising. Anyway, so back to this conference, man.
Yeah. Well, and also there are kind of to pivot on why this is needed so much. And I just really love your analogy, and I hope that you'll put that in your pocket and bring it up again at the conference, because, and maybe I might even have you open with that analogy of force. When you're getting attacked, if you do not respond, you're going to get overrun. I love that. Is such a good life lesson, and because it really is. I would like to say that we would have done this conference anyway, but the reality is it's a response to what's going on in the country, right? I think everything that we're talking about at the conference is very needed and very it's evergreen. Like you could take this at any point in history because we're rooting it in the Word of God, and it would be fruitful. But the reality is that you have conferences that are being put on by people that are kind of become known as the Theo Bros. And these are extreme right Christian nationalist pastors and podcasters. Some of them are out of Ogden, Utah, which is, they're not Mormon, but they're out of Utah. And they put on a conference. The event was called The War for Normal, which is a great title. Hey, yeah, we should have a war for normal, like whatever normal. But then you have to question yourself, what's the question? The next question is, well, what do you define as normal, right? Well, for these guys, normal would be having exhibitors at their conference that literally had Nazi-era propagandist material and books for sale.
Mm-hmm.
So this isn't new. It's not neo-Nazi, meaning like new Nazi stuff. It's literally they went and got old Nazi stuff, old Nazi propaganda and publishing, and they sold it on their exhibitor tables.
Are these the Theo Bros? That's the
well, Theo Bros is kind of a pejorative term that other people coined. Specifically, it's guys. Let me. I got so.
Is that this one? Please don't call the Theo Bros Christians. These are the guys.
I'm not sure if those are the guys or. I know their names. If I saw their faces up close, maybe I'd recognize them. It's guys like Joel Webbin, Eric Kahn, Brian Suave, Doug Wilson, it was actually Doug Wilson pushed back. He attended the conference, but he pushed back because he saw the Nazi booksellers' presence, and he actually said it was a real problem in the movement. But he was attending the conference as a positive thing, and the people running the conference and speaking at the conference are vehemently anti-Semitic. Mm-hmm. So these are the guys that say there's no Judeo-Christian morals, it's only Christian morals, that the United States has nothing to do with the Jewish people and its founding, which is a complete lie. All the founders quoted and used the Torah and the book of Deuteronomy specifically to draft the Constitution of the United States. We have guys like Chaim Solomon that nearly single-handedly funded or secured funding and also partially funded personally himself the war for independence against Britain in 1776 moving forward. So the Jewish roots, at least in assistance and partnership with the beginning of the nation of America, United States of America, was profound. And so from a theological perspective and from just a human, personal perspective with guys like Chaim Solomon. So, they say that I think it was Joel Webbin or Eric Kahn. I can't remember exactly, so I don't want to get it wrong. But one of these guys has said, that Jews have no seat at the table in the United States. That this is a quote, Jesus only country, which is so ironic because Yeshua of Nazareth, Jesus of Nazareth, is the Jew, and by many the Jew of all Jews, right? So it's just something to be aware of, that these guys, whether it's some things to be aware of. New Christendom Press, not a good thing. Okay, that's who helped organize the War for Normal. Antelope Hill Publishing, not a good thing. These are literal neo-Nazi Christian nationalists, and at a time in history where this should kind of only be found at a Klan meeting, now it's gaining mainstream support. And I think it goes back to the fear factor. Whenever human beings are afraid, and I think COVID had a big part of this in America, and also the election of 2020 in America as well, put a lot of doubt in conservative Christian minds, specifically the younger generation, and they're wanting to try to take some control, pushing back against the left that's so pro-trans and BLM and open borders, and the religious side of the equation that's being loudest about pushing it back against that are these guys. It's voices like this, which really goes to your point earlier, Mansur, about unless, I don't know what you would call them, but like truth speakers, like pastors that should be telling the truth out and loud, particularly in the political realm, I think, and when it comes to this kind of stuff, because they're not, you've got guys like Joel Webbin and Eric Kahn and Brian Suave that are happily acquiring those young minds for themselves. And on one hand, they're talking about traditional marriage, which I agree with. Fantastic. They talk about secure borders, which is very important. I agree with. They talk about fair and not legal. Yeah, it's legal is part of it, but a fair voting system that's non-corruptible. I agree with all that. But then they throw in, but Jews are actually the problem of everything that we're pushing back against. I'm like, okay, where is it? How does that have anything to do with Christianity? And it doesn't. But that's how, people like this are so dangerous, because there's a lot of truth in the evil that they sow.
Yeah, I wanna address some of the comments that are being put here in the chat. Seems to be quite
everybody mad. Is that what?
No. There's actually a very good Discord there, very active chat, and I'm glad about it. Even though some opinions I might agree, might not agree. Generalizing is a very dangerous tool. I'm not one of these hippies that says, guys, generalizing is a very scientific tool. You can come and say that Germans are organized, they are. You can come and say Middle Easterns are not, they're not. Yes, you have Middle Eastern people that are very organized, some of them more than the Germans or the average German. But with that, to come and throw, they're all evil, I hate them, that is stupid. That is very dangerous. That is not helpful. And people in Israel need to wake up. I'm addressing the people in Israel that might have these kind of thoughts. Guys, we're seeing right now how the world is turning against us. We're seeing right now that I've just watched a video now of a Syrian general, former general from the Assad regime, who was interviewed, and he's saying, we're just waiting for the command, for the order from Ahmed al-Shara, and we have 5 million Bedouin tribes, jihadist warriors who are ready to march on Israel and annihilate Israel. 5 million. And then the guy interviewing him is trying to push back and asking him, but that Israel have very strong air force. They control the skies. Like we see in Lebanon, what's happening. Aren't you worried? How? And this guy is like, and he says, I'm confident that Israel cannot kill all 5 million, and they won't be able to find them behind every rock in this. So many of them will still manage to go and annihilate the Jews in Israel. So you're seeing that there is people around the world that are just literally obsessed with their hate toward Israel. Obsessed so much that they don't care about themselves, don't care about their politics, don't care about how they're going to destroy their country. We're seeing the same obsession leaking right now into Europe, some countries like Spain, that are literally willing to destroy Spain in order to feed their anti-Semitic hatred toward Israel and their fake support toward Palestine. We're seeing the same thing happening in the US, guys. Now, you can come and say, I don't agree with the teaching of the Christians. I don't agree with the teachings of the Buddhists, of Muslims. It doesn't matter what. But to come and say that I hate all Muslims, I hate all Christians, I hate all Jews is just stupid. And it's unnecessarily, and it's not helpful, because you're creating enemies for yourself that are not your enemies. Spoiler alert, not all Muslims hate Israel. Not all Muslims hate the Jews. I have great Muslim friends. Yes, the religion itself is problematic. Not understanding how important is, and we're going to take this right now for an education moment, guys. Not understanding how important it is, the conservative and Christian movement in the United States, particularly the young one, is borderline suicidal.
Yeah.
If America falls, Western civilization falls with it. There is big sharks and octopuses around the world waiting for America to fall in order to establish their dominance. If it's China, if it's Russia, if it's world jihad. And the only one holding them right now is America and Israel. But Israel cannot do this alone. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Israel cannot save planet Earth alone. America right now is saving the planet. Like, think about it. What would happen to the world if the world will be under Sharia law? That's it. Forget about science. Forget about innovation. Forget about human rights. Forget about women's rights. Forget about progress. We're going to go back. What will happen if all the world right now will be communist China? If you're not Chinese, it's not going to be fun for you. Or if all the world will be ruled by Russia right now, you speak something against the government, you go to the gulag. Turkey, all these. So there is very important nations that are part of this Western civilization that we're living in. And believe it or not, Israel is one of them. We're part of the Western civilization. We have democracy, we have freedom, we have human rights. And to come and say that none of these guys are important, they're all dead to me, is just stupid. And harmful. And I know most Israelis don't think that way, but the ones who do, guys, wake up.
Yeah.
We are right now, under our nose, losing some of the only friends that we have in the world. People that love us, people that are willing to go out and stand beside us. And that's a lot of these brave, amazing Christians in America and conservatives in America. And the least we can do is to come and show them, guys, we appreciate, thank you. I might not agree. I don't want to pray like you pray. That's okay. But I at least appreciate it. And also one thing you need to understand, Christianity does not hate the Jews.
Right.
Yes, through the history of Christianity, there was a lot of Christians that took advantage of that religion and used it for very hateful reasons, but it was not part of the context. It was not part of the text. It was not part of the core identity of that religion, which started, by the way, as a Jewish religion. Like I said many times, started as a Jewish religion. The first church was Jewish. The first 15 to 30 years of the congregation of the church was only Jews.
Yeah.
So Hannah and Moshe, who are right now fishing in the Kinneret, and they heard that there's a rabbi coming to their town to speak, they very fast finished, wrapping their nets and ran back home to hear about this new Christian faith that we call it Christian today. It was no name for it. By the way, Christians was an insult, the word. It's as if the N-word.
It was the way.
Say it again, sorry.
Haderech, the way.
Yeah.
That's what it was called.
So they did not identify themselves as Christian. It just came later on as a name that got stuck to them. Same, by the way, by the Druze. The Druze, people don't know that.
Huh.
The Druze, there was a guy named Ildarazeh, who was one of the main Muslim generals that were trying to annihilate the Druze. He was going and hunting them down, trying to kill them. And no one knew about the Druze. So then they started calling them, you guys are the people of Ildarazeh.
Huh.
And then later on, you guys are the people of the Druze. So even the Druze got their nickname for the one who came to destroy them.
Yeah.
So Christians, the word Christianity was an abbreviation that the Greeks, they just didn't know how to say the Messiah, HaMashiach.
Yeah.
What is HaMashiach, Messiah? They didn't know how to say that. So then they said, okay, what does that mean? Mashiach. And again, Mashiach means limshuch, mashuch.
Yeah.
Anointed. So anointed, what do you mean? Yeah, these Jews, these Jews, they anoint their kings and their prophets and their messiahs with oil. So they say, okay, so we can call it Christos, which is the oily one. So they use it as a nickname, the oily people.
Yeah.
And it got stuck. And today we're all proud. The cross was the execution method. If Yeshua, Jesus, would have been executed today, 500 years from now, and 1,000 years forward, all Christians will be walking with an electrifying chair or a needle on their neck, because that would have been the method of execution. You understand? So that was the method of execution that he went and got executed. He was not the only one who got executed on a cross. There were many Jews and Gentiles who got executed. Like, there were times that all the roads to Rome were full of people just dying on a cross. So you need to understand that history and to understand that the sins that happen under Christian nations through the history does not represent the Christian today that comes and tells you, I'm with you, brother. Mm-hmm. Even if he doesn't agree with you or not, even if you think that your faith, that you're practicing it wrong or not. Heck, you might think that I'm practicing my faith wrong. I might think that you're practicing your faith wrong. Someone might think that, oh, he's he's eating cheeseburger. He's practicing his faith wrong. Someone come and tell you, yeah, well, you know what? When the angels came to the tent, I think it was Abraham, right?
Yeah.
In the tent.
That's
He
right.
actually gave them meat and cheese.
Together. That's right.
Yeah. Oh, what happened to kashrut over there? So you can come and take a lot of verses and take them out of context and just come to, yeah, religion. If not like me, I hate them. But I just think that is destructive and that is not helpful. And if there was a time that we should care about our friends, now is the time. That's what I wanted to say, guys. It's super important. I'm sitting here doing my advocacy. I'm going around streaming on gaming platforms. Like, I'm a streamer. I didn't even have a Facebook until the age of 27. Like, I didn't have an email until the age of 23. I was a caveman. I was in the special forces. I was a caveman. I didn't have an email. And now all of a sudden I'm like OBS and I don't know what trying to.
I had 2 kids before I had even sent a text message.
Yeah. I understand that there's a need to be a relevant voice to come and show the beauty of my country, Israel, and to stand on the alliance of Western civilization that I love so much, that I said, okay, I'm going to get out of my way and I'm going to go. I hate social media. If I could choose, I will not have Instagram. I hate it. Not hate it, but I mean, it's not my thing.
Yeah, me neither. Yeah, totally.
But now I'm every day on it, uploading videos, reading, understanding it. I tried TikTok. That was too sleazy for me. You know, that's my limit. That's my limit. But my point is, we are now called to get out of our comfort zone and to understand the big picture and what is important right now. And our way of life is under attack. If the world will become Christians, the Jews will be safe today. I'm talking Christians of today. If the world will become Muslim, the Jews are not safe.
Mm-hmm.
It's that simple. If the world will become right now Muslim, then they will just kill one another. It is the religion of war. They say it. By the way, if you come and you tell a Muslim, when you ask him, are you guys a religion of peace? You'll see that he's going to have a smile. Usually have a smile on his face. Like, yes, we are. Yeah. They don't say that a religion of peace to one another.
No.
2 Muslims sitting in a room, they don't say that. They know they're not a religion of peace. They know it. The Quran did not call them to convert the world of Islam through means of peace. They know it. But to the West, they say, yeah, tell them. These idiots believe that. Judaism and Christianity are religions of peace. In the core, are religions who come and put...
More than that, they're religions of life.
And love, yeah. And love, life and love. And that is important. If you look at the teaching of Jesus, it was a teaching of love and peace. If you look at the teaching of the Bible, the Old Testament, it was a teaching of love and peace. It was a teaching also that came and said, no man is perfect. They're all flawed. And emphasize that even the greatest have fallen short before the glory of God. Islam is doing the opposite. They took the biggest warlord who married little girls after he murdered their parents and asked his warlords to build a tent just after he beheaded her parents, to build a tent so he can go and grape that girl. And then he went and did crazy stuff. And they come and tell you that's the perfect example of a human being. Everybody should be like him, and everything that he did is right. No one should even dare. You don't hear Jews coming and teaching you that everything that David did, King David, was right. Because they know it's not. The Bible says very clearly, same with Abraham.
That's what's beautiful about the Bible, is that all of our warts are in there. You can tell it was not written by someone editing the story, because all of our dirty laundry is for everyone to see, and that's the point.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's why I think these religions are actually good, and we know they're good. Like, before Judaism came to the world was in a darker place. People were doing crazy stuff. Yes, in Judaism they did crazy stuff as well in the history, but you can see that it brought all of a sudden this belief that we're all equal. That was not unheard before. No religion before almost say we're all equal. There was no equality. And this religion came and said, we're all equal, guys. We're all children of God.
Yeah.
And that brought forth the Christianity that amplified this all around the globe. And out of Judaism and Christianity, you can see a lot of scientific, modern day technological, cultural innovations came. Islam is going to destroy that. They don't believe in that. So you can see what religions are actually bringing a fruit of love and peace, and which religions, at least the way they're practiced today, people can come and argue that, yeah, I heard many Muslims were arguing, yeah, the Quran was changed. It was never that intention. It was changed so much by warlords and politicians that they took it and made it, this political military campaign. All right, fair enough. If you believe that, okay, but prove it to me. Show me an example of a Muslim society that's actually living in a very healthy way and productive way, and I will say great. And yes, we're having right now the EU. That's a good example. I wish all Muslim countries would be like that, but most of them are not. Look at Christian and Jewish countries. There's only one Jewish country. They're living very good. So that's what I'm saying, guys. I think it's just important. I want to thank. Please check out my reading Psalms by King David. Please check out me reading Psalms by King David. All right. Where people need to go and check you out, or thanks for that. Did you make a comment about it here?
The other thing while you're checking the comments, I think that people, particularly in America, and they're waking up a little bit, but they don't really understand, for particularly ones that think that Israel's the problem, that when Hamas came over the border on October 7th, look, Islam does not care who you are if you are in the territory that they are trying to take over, right? We had Thailandis that got killed. We had Russians, Americans,
Muslims
Israelis,
got killed,
Filipinos, Muslims, right? Arabs, Jews. Everybody was slaughtered in the path of Islamic aggression, and that's what just boggles my mind that these people don't get. It's like, you think the Jews are the problem? Like, what? This is so mentally crazy. It's insane.
Yeah. It's insane. Someone's asking, by the way, thank you so much for that. KKKYJ8RE. KKK. Question to Mansur: how and why you got Germany? Why not move back to Israel? I always enjoy your shows. Thank you. I moved to Germany just because my partner, she's German. When the kid was born, and she was living in the Middle East for a very long time. I can't elaborate about that because out of security and safety reasons, but she was very, very hardcore, deep inside, crazy place in the Middle East. And when the kid was born, she said, I miss the green, I miss the peace. I want to grow the kid maybe a little bit closer to my parents in Germany. They're older, they're getting sick. And I came and said, why not? Let's give it a try. I didn't enjoy the time in Israel and decided to. Actually, I really love Israel and I would love to stay there. But I came here and I gave it a try. And actually, it's a great country. Germany is a great country. Raising kids, at least until the age of 12, I feel it's probably one of the best countries in the world. Hands down. Probably, in terms of raising children, probably better than Israel and America by far. Like, the system here is just way better. Kids here, barely see them on the phones. Kids here are eating healthy. Schools here are very focused on, on the children. There's a lot of culture, a lot of nature around. It's beautiful. I love it. Something goes wrong at the age of 12 to 14, then become weird. But I have theories about that. I don't know. But until then, it's a great country. It's a great country. So to your question, it's mostly because of my family. And I said, I'll give it a try. And I came here and I'm really liking it. But I also love, being in Israel and raising kids in Israel and etc. I think there's also a lot of advantages living in Israel society when it comes to the modern tribal community kind of wise. It's almost non-existent anywhere else. Like, that's something that is definitely missing here in Germany.
Yeah.
That it takes a village to raise a child, they say. In Israel, you get that.
Whether you want it or not.
Whether you want it or not, exactly. I mean, it depends where you live, but in many places in Israel, you get that. Yeah. People get involved in your life for the good and for the bad. In many places, they don't. So that's about that question. It's a good question. Thanks for that. All right, David. We've talked for an hour and a half.
I'm just curious your opinion on something real quick.
Go ahead.
What do you? I couldn't remember the guy's name. I think he's a leader of the Druzi in Soweto. But he was calling. I read it, and he was either Times or Ynet yesterday. But it's something near us in the Golan. There's a Druze community they're just outwardly calling right now, like, we are part of Israel. We want to secede. Like, we see ourselves as Israeli. Like, that's the messaging. Which, how common is that in the Druze community? And do you think that there's any national appetite amongst, like, Israeli politicians to actually get that to happen?
It's a very good question. So to answer the first one, it's very common among Druze in Syria, and I would say even in Lebanon, and I would even expand it among Christians in Syria and Lebanon and many of these places. The only difference is the Druze are among the only communities right now living under Muslim occupation that have not bended the knee to Sharia and are still standing tall and saying, no, not going to happen, and fighting. The Christians are not united enough. And often they're very, Arab Christians are different than American Christians.
Yeah.
They took much more the path of pacifists, of we're neutral. And I understand that they took it out of survival mentality, because American Christians are living in a Christian country that empowers them, and they're encouraged to be strong and brave about their faith and stand their ground and do the right thing. Arab Christians, let's say in Lebanon and in Syria, they're at the verge of extinction. People don't understand that. They're literally getting extinct. They're shrinking every year. They're having suicide bombers and jihadists in Syria go into the churches, blowing them up. There was one suicide bomber that went into a church in Syria while they were praying and started shooting. And then strong Christian men jumped on him to stop him. And then he blew himself on them. And then he had his friends outside that opened fire at the Christians that came to check on their wounds and killed more and then ran away. And most likely, from what I've heard, none of them got arrested. So the government is supporting and sponsoring the ethnic cleansing of Christians, Druze, Alawites, Yazidis, and every other minority in many of these countries. So the more that Israel, and that's why I say Israel is the light in the darkness here, the more that Israel goes around and beat the cow poop out of these jihadists, then they start running and hiding in their tunnels. Hezbollah and Hamas and etc. That's when you start hearing more and more real brave voices that come and say, Israel, we don't hate you. Please take us. Because they see how Christians are living in Israel, how Druze are living in Israel. Now with the Druze, because they already feel like they burned all the bridges, and they can never go back and live under Islamic occupation, because they expose their cards. Because Muslims for a very long time in Syria were lying to the Druze while oppressing them, but lying to them, tell, listen guys, the Jews, they're evil. We're protecting you from them. If it was up to them, they'll come and kill you and steal your daughters. And they had no idea, like, to even verify or check that. But then when the war happened and they came and started massacring the Druze, none of these Arab countries, none of these Muslim countries that kept telling them, stay with us, be against Israel, against America, none of them came to help them. Actually, they sponsored the killing of them. They betrayed them. So that's when the Druze realized, wow, these guys, you can't trust them. They did on us like October 7 guys did on, like the Gazan did on the people in Otef Gaza. The ones who loved them and cared for them, the Druze protected them and cared for them. They turned on them and killed them. So now the Druze are realizing, especially in Syria, enough hiding. Israel, we love you. Israel, you're not our enemy. You're an ally. You're the only one that actually take care of minorities in the Middle East. And if you come and take us and make us part of you. So they're very genuine about it. They're very genuine about it. Yes, you have some Druze here and there that have been infected with the jihadist virus or the communist virus, like mostly in Lebanon. Not all, but you have there like more common, the Jumblati people. Now, regarding Israel, if the West will wake up and have a clairvoyance for 1 month, if you right now cast a spell and make all the leaders of the West like,
yeah,
the fog of war and mental disease is going to be lifted from their brains, and they're like, in 1 month, you will have the Middle East transformed into a much more peaceful place where you'll have alliance between everyone that is being persecuted and massacred by the Muslims. And things will be very clear. Let's help the Christians, let's help the Druze, let's help the Yazidis, let's help the Jews. They're the good guys here. They're not the ones trying to murder and kill everyone else. But right now, you see, Israel is like getting so much hate for literally doing what they need to do to survive. So for Israel now to try to push and angst these Druze, I think they're going to get so much pushback by Turkey, by Qatar, by the Muslim Brotherhood, who, by the way, seems to have way more influence on the US government than Israel, by the way, guys. It's surprising, I know.
Wow.
Why do you think Trump want to sell F-35s to Erdogan?
Yeah.
That makes no sense.
So weird.
Why did Trump remove the Al-Qaeda most wanted kind of title from Ahmed al-Shari? He was the top 5th most wanted terrorist by America. Top 5. That takes a lot to get to be top. You need to understand, you know how many terrorists are around the world? There's hundreds of millions of terrorists around the world, guys. I'm not kidding. Number 5? 2 billion Muslims, several millions, easily tens, if not hundreds, of terrorists. If you go by the category of terrorists, you'll be surprised. 5. That bad. Removed. Ally. So the Muslim lobby is getting stronger and stronger with America, and it's trying to paint it the other way around. And they're gonna push back on Israel so hard if they try to do that. I think Israel have just other things on their plate right now.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I wish Israel will angst the Druze. I wish Israel will help the Christians and the minorities in the Middle East to have their own borders and safety and security. But it seems, like I said, like the world is not focused on doing the right thing. Not even remotely. Like once in a while, you get some decisions that make sense, like attacking Iran, the IRGC, that makes sense. Obviously, they want to have a nuclear weapon, chant death to America all the time. But that takes so long until one have like actually the clairvoyance. Okay, that's what needs to be done. Let's do it.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I hope Rubio will be elected. I feel like he have more common sense than the average American politician. That's
sure.
my.
For sure. He's got the track record and he's got the clairvoyance for sure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, David, it was an honor having you here, man. Anyone who is in the US during these times and want to join this conference, I guess you can go and register on the website. You'll get to see me, David, and very interesting speakers there, all the way from the Christian, the Jewish, the Arab world, in the Middle East, and in the United States. It's a very important conference, and we should have more. And also, we need to talk about the idea of how do we call it, birthright for Christians.
Yes. Absolutely.
Let's make that happen, man. That's a good cause. That's a good cause. I'm 100% behind it. That's a good cause.
Me too.
So, to everyone back home, guys, stay safe. Don't do anything stupid. Make good choices, and see you next time.